Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how I built this quadcopter. This is using alumiweld welding rods and just square 12mm tubing and some small pieces of aluminum sheeting, and it's just all welded together. And I'll show you how I built that. It flies great. It weighs 1073 with all the electronics except for the battery. That's not too bad. Okay, these are the CAD drawings that I made up for the helicopter. You can download these from a link from Mediafire that I'll have on my YouTube, or you can actually check out the drawing, and I'll probably put it again at the end of the video so you can take a look at the JPEG. But it has a complete drawing for the top, side, and end views, so you can get all the dimensions from the drawing. Okay, I'm going to make a video here on the assembly of the H-Quad. There's four main bar pieces here, and there's two 370mm lengths, and then there's two 388mm lengths. As you'll see here, I got these cut here, so they're the two 388s, and they're the two 370s. The 388 ones are going to be the lengthwise bars that go up and down, like this and like that. And then the two 370mm ones are going to be like this. Let's do this. Like that. Like that. And here's the other 270mm ones. So those are going to go there like that to make the H. So the other thing I did in preparing these is I drilled holes in the middle of these bars for the ESC wires that are going to be going to the motors, so they could easily run those through the tubes from inside the frame. And the other thing we've got here, so we've got those all set up. I'm putting plates a little bit different than my old orientation. I'm going to be putting plates here and plates here just to hold it in place while I do the alumiweld. Basically, it just gives it a little bit extra strength, and I'm alumiweld with those plates in place, and I just put those together. I just drilled some holes, and I just have some 3mm hexes here that I drilled holes for, and that will screw all that together. Okay, now I've got my 2M plates that are holding the H frame together. I kept to make sure that my orientation is all straight up, so I just put arrows and marker left and right to make sure you got that all facing in the right place. Now we're going to put our motor plates on each wing, and I have them numbered so that when I drilled them, I didn't do it perfectly. So I just drilled them so that I would always make sure that I had that oriented correctly. So I just have screws that are going to hold these in place again, so that when I'm doing the alumiweld, I don't have to worry about getting them just perfectly in the right place. So I'll put these. Okay, so we got those all put in place, and I'm ready to alumiweld. The thing you got to make sure you do before you assemble it is to make sure you use a wire brush. And let me zoom in close here so you can see this. Use a wire brush and clean up all the surfaces that the alumiweld is going to touch. So especially on here, we're going to be alumiwelding on the back here and putting alumiweld all around the outside edges here. And then on the back here, we're going to be putting alumiweld all in these corners and all in here. So we got to make sure that you got those all nicely brushed clean. Okay, now we're going to start applying the alumiweld to the frame right here. So we got to heat this all up and get it all nice and hot, and then start applying beads of the alumiweld to the frame. Got to get it nice and hot. Got to get it up to about 700 degrees. Okay, now it's starting to get tacky now. You can see it's starting to get tacky in there. Starting to lay down the alumiweld. Okay, it looks like I got that corner pretty good. Looks like we got both sides and the bottom of the plate there. So that end is all firmly affixed. We're going to flip around and do the other end. Okay, now we're going to do the other end. Okay, it's starting to get tacky. Okay, we're starting up the other side. Okay, while all the metal is still hot, keep doing the motor mounts now. That way you don't have to heat up all the aluminum frame, because the heat that you put in here radiates through the entire frame. So the hotter the entire frame is, the easier it will be to get things up to heat. Now we do the motor mounts just like we do the frame. Heat it up. Use that screw and swivel it so it's nice and straight. Heat it up really good. Just test it once in a while. Rub your alumiweld on there. It starts to rub off, so it's just starting to rub right now. tile cracking a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty good. And there's one. Just do all the rest of them like that. Okay, now we do the next motor mount. Okay, now that I've finished doing all the different welds, solder or weld, whatever you want to call it, let's take a look at the different joints here and see how they came out. So let's zoom in on some of these. You can see it actually came out pretty good. You can see that the joint looks pretty solid here all the way around. I can angle this up a little bit so you can see that, but it looks solid all the way around, making good contact. The middle joints, again, make good contact all the way around, making good contact with the base, make good contact with the plate. The other end, all these contacts in here all look pretty good. A couple little spots that aren't that solid, but all in all they're pretty good. All the different motor plates are all looking good. Lots of material down there to make sure it got nice and solid. As you can see there, that material works pretty good. Okay, now we got to set up the motor mount. What I did was I just used this little piece that comes with the NTM motors from Hobby King. I just set it up how I want the motor oriented over the motor plate right here. I had made my center mark on the motor plate, just centered that over there. I made some marks, and then I used a center punch to make sure I get a good starting point for my drill. And now I'm just going to drill out the holes one at a time. Okay, good. So there's my 4 holes. The only other thing we're going to have to do, we're going to do a countersink on the other side, so that these nice little motors that also come with my NTM motors, these little screws that come with the NTM motors, these little screws right here, I'm going to countersink the back of these to make sure they fit well into the motor mount. Okay, now I've got this bit attached to my drill here, which basically helps create the countersink for these small screws that come with my NTM motor, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that to each one of these things that I drilled. Put that out there like that. We can fit a screw into each one of those, and it makes a nice, neat, flush fit. So I'll go over some of the drill bits that I used. For this hole right here, I used a 5/16 to drill the hole through the middle. And then I used a 1/8 to drill these holes, to drill the actual motor mount holes. And then I used this countersink bit to countersink the bottom. And I use this little countersink bit here to countersink the bottom. So those are the different drill bits that I used there. The drill bits that I used for the other parts to hold these parts in, for the top plates I used a 1/8 just for the top plate, and for the part that screws into the actual tubing here, I used a 7/64, which made it just small enough so that I could tap it out for a 3mm hex screw that I put in there. And those were just in there temporarily while it kind of held the whole machine together while I used the alumiweld. So anyways, so those are the drill bits. Now we got our motor mount plates on, and we got to go mount our motors and fit the rest of the helicopter together. Okay, as you can see, I alumiwelded on these tubing, kind of like a landing gear, almost like a helicopter landing gear, to give it a nice protective thing. What I found out when I fly my other H-quad like this, I fly really close to the ground a lot, and I had my battery underneath, and what was happening, it was catching the battery, and this way it'll be like a skid, so I can go and do low ground maneuvers. I can actually hit the ground and keep sliding and not worry about messing up my battery. It makes a nice acrobatic platform. Okay, now we got the I put the motors on with propellers. I just took them off another quad that I had. Got those are all flush set in there. Got with some thread locker in there. Got those in nice and tight. And I ran extensions, ESC extensions from inside the tubes down here, coming out here, and then I put a little bit of shrink tubing around the edges right here. Even though I deburred those holes where those come out, I put a little shrink tubing in there just to protect them from wear and edges. So I got all four of the motor connections coming out of the frame now. Then, okay, now we're going to put on the bottom plates for just this thin pieces of plastic that I get in big sheets. These two pieces are going to go here. This one's going to go in the middle. I already have some foam double stick tape already out there, so all I got to do is peel these back. Okay, now all I have to do is put the top plate on, which is going to hold my KK2 controller right here. So I set the center right there, which is where the controller is going to go over. I'm going to put that right now. The controller is going to go here, and put the receiver back here, and all the ESCs and stuff like that will go underneath. Okay, now I just assembled the power distribution for my 4 ESCs, and I put them on this small power distribution board I got from quadframes.com, and it's just nicely links up all 4 different speed controllers, and then my power wire that's going to go to the battery. And I'm just going to take some shrink tube, put that in some shrink tube, so this way 2 of the ESCs go forward, 2 of the ESCs go backward, and it stays in a nice compact thing that'll stay underneath the KK2 controller. Okay, and this is what it looks like when it's all shrink wrapped. Nice and tight and packaged that has the wires going either way, so it makes it nice and neat. Okay, I'm just going to check out my center rotation, where to put the controller. As you can see, I got that X marked up there. It goes like that. It goes like that. You can see it lines up right over my X. The other way you can do it is measure it 206 from each end, and it should line up to there, and then just divide the 8mm wide in the 4. It should give you dead center of rotation. You can always refer to the plans that I have uploaded online, which has got all that marked out on it. Okay, time to put the KK2 board on here. I always seem to put it on the same way whenever I'm doing KK2s. I take some of the foam that actually comes in the little container that it comes in. I take that thin thing of foam and I stick it on there with some double stick tape. So I'm going to peel off the double stick tape, put the foam on here, put some more double stick foam tape here, and then stick my controller where it's supposed to be centered on the craft. Okay, I got the chopper all put together, and just want to review basically how I finished it off. I have these foam tops right here with Velcro on it to be able to get access to the inside compartments there, and these just pop right off. Got all the electronics nice and neatly packed on the inside. I put a couple of Velcro straps around for the battery compartments here, so these just pop right back down here if you need to get access to your electronics again. Nice and easy. Pop those on, and so the battery just basically fits in this nice neat compartment down the bottom. We'll just kind of show how the battery just slides in there, and that's why I built these landing gear rails. It just fits down there nice and tight, and the battery wire comes from inside down here, and that can all be tucked up in here while you're flying. So okay, so that's the chopper all finished and put together. I got a First Sky D8R on here that goes with my 9XR radio, and that just hooked into a KK2 controller that I flashed to version 1.6, and it seems to fly pretty good. I like it, and I was using 1.5, and it flies great. And I have the battery voltage wire running back from here into my power distribution that I built earlier, and it flies awesome. Okay, I'm just going to go over some of the materials that you need to build this alumiweld copter. First of all, you're going to need some square tubing, and this right here is just a 12mm square tubing. This is what I spec'd out in my CAD drawing. You can get that at Lowe's. You can get it at lots of different places. I'm lucky enough to have a place near me called Skycraft Parts in Orlando that sells all kinds of aluminum and pieces like that, where I got a lot of the parts. For the motor mounts, you need this 3mm wide aluminum. It's just basic aluminum. I buy it in sheets, and you just cut it to shape. This is the 1.5mm aluminum sheet that I use for the braces that go at the front and back of the helicopter. So these are the 1.5mm right here. These are the 3mm. Then I have 1mm aluminum sheet right here, which is used as the base for the motor mount, which is just double-side stick taped on. And then the plastic sheeting, this is just thin plastic sheeting I get at a hobby store, and that's what I made up the bottom plates. They're just light plastic that fits on the bottom there. And then for the top, I just used this lightest foam piece that goes on top here. You can use, you know, any kind of different foam, any kind of material. You could use this white sheeting again. I just wanted to do something different. It's extremely light and can take some impact. In addition to the other aluminum that you'll need is, this is what I made the landing gear out of. So this is the landing gear right here. It's right here is this tube. But since I didn't have a really strong tubed aluminum, I used this as the 8mm outside tubing, and I put this other tubing that you just buy at the hobby store, I put that inside before I cut it and bent it, so it's kind of actually doubled up and made it a little bit stronger, and I just bent that to shape. In addition, you're going to need your aluminum light rods. These are just the rods that you use with a brazing torch, and I'll put a link on the web about where to get those. And then of course you're going to need something to cut, but you're going to need something to cut it with, and you're going to need a saber saw or something like that to cut your aluminum, cut your tubing, do all your metal cutting with. In addition to that, you're going to need just a brazing torch setup. I use map gas because it runs a little hotter and it heats up that aluminum a little quicker, with just your basic head that comes with it and a lighter. So, and that's basically the materials that you need to build the frame. Other than that, you just need your regular RC stuff that you already have or are going to build, or I'll put a list of materials that I use, but basically the motors are NTM 2826 1200 kVs with 9 by 4.7 props on them. The ESCs are just Turnigy Plush basic 25 amp ESCs. They're like, I don't know, $11 or something like that for those. I use extensions, ESC extensions, to get from here out to the motors, and ran those down the tubes right there. You saw earlier I used that power distribution small panel that I got from quadcopters, quadframes.com. KK2 board, of course, you get from Hobby King. Upgrade that to the version 1.6 firmware. This is the FR Sky receiver that I got from Hobby King that works with my 9XR, inexpensive receiver, and that's all the electronics. Other than that, you just got to add your battery and you're ready to go. I use a 5,000 milliamp battery, so I get like, about 12 to 15 minutes of flight time from this helicopter. So anyways, there's the materials and the parts.